Who is Dorcas? According to her story recorded in Acts 9, she was always doing good and helping those in need by making clothing and providing for other needs. Known for her kindness and hospitality, Dorcas was appreciated by the people. Her financial status is not shared in the Bible. However, she may have had some wealth as she was able to locate materials to make clothing for people in need. Her unique ministry continues to inspire people today. Where did Dorcas live? Dorcas was living in the harbor city of Joppa, which was located about 125 feet above sea level. Joppa was known for being the town where the cedars of Lebanon had been sent to be shipped to Jerusalem for use in the temple's construction. 2 Chronicles 2 verse 16. Joppa is also known as the city where Jonah fled from the presence of the Lord by boarding a ship for Tarshish. Scripture shares that Peter received the vision that prompted him to expand his ministry. Acts chapter 9:32. As Peter traveled about the country, he went to visit the Lord's people who lived in Lydda. There he found a man named Aeneas, who was paralyzed and had been bedridden for 8 years. Aeneas, Peter said to him, "Jesus Christ heals you. Get up and roll up your mat." Immediately Aeneas got up. All those who lived in Lydda and Sharon saw him and turned to the Lord. In Joppa there was a disciple named Tabitha. In Greek her name is Dorcas. She was always doing good and helping the poor. About that time she became sick and died, and her body was washed and placed in an upstairs room. Lydda was near Joppa. So when the disciples heard that Peter was in Lydda, they sent 2 men to him and urged him, "Please come at once." Peter went with them, and when he arrived he was taken upstairs to the room. All the widows stood around him, crying and showing him the robes and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was still with them. Peter sent them all out of the room. Then he got down on his knees and prayed. Turning toward the dead woman, he said, "Tabitha, get up." She opened her eyes, and seeing Peter she sat up. He took her by the hand and helped her to her feet. Then he called for the believers, especially the widows, and presented her to them alive. This became known all over Joppa, and many people believed in the Lord. Peter stayed in Joppa for some time with a tanner named Simon. The significance of Dorcas caring for widows. In biblical times, being a widow not only meant that a woman's husband had died. Ancient cultures didn't usually have safety nets for older people without children. Being a widow meant that if the woman had no children to care for them, they had no one to care for and provide for them. Since widows were often in need, Scripture frequently mentions them alongside the poor, homeless, and fatherless. What happened to Dorcas? Dorcas became sick and died. Her specific illness is not listed in the Bible. After her death, her body was washed and placed in an upstairs room. The people who knew Dorcas were saddened and sent men to find Peter and bring him to the house where her body was laid. Peter arrived at the house and heard crying. People began showing him clothing and items that Dorcas had made for them. Can we learn anything from Dorcas' life? As with the life of every creation of God, we can learn and deepen our relationship with God. Looking upon the life of Dorcas, we are reminded that no matter what name we are called, we are uniquely gifted by God. Dorcas had the gift of hospitality shown in how she cared for others. Our God-given gifts may change from time to time according to God's plan for our lives. Dorcas made clothing to give to widows and people in need. We can share what we have with others, even if we don't have much to give. The life of Dorcas also shows us that nothing is impossible with God. He equips his followers for the ministry and to lead others to him. Dorcas eventually died, yet from her being raised from the dead by Peter, we can rest in the knowledge that God is in control. Women had significant roles in furthering the ministry of Jesus. From Eve in the garden to the Virgin Mary to Dorcas being raised from the dead, many women in the Bible fulfilled God's promises in various ways. God has a plan for each person. His plan is always best.